Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be recapping all the bets I gave out for UFC Nashville. And yeah, we absolutely killed it on the bets. Every single parlay I gave out cashed except for one, and all but two of the official plays cashed. So personally, I was up about 10 units on the night. So I hope you guys tailed, but if you didn't, that's okay. Just subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button, leave a comment, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a video. And so you can start making free money, because with the way the UFC schedule is looking in the next couple of months, it's going to be raining money if you follow my plays. So without further ado, let's get right into this, boys. Alright, so first up on the card, we had Fatima Kline taking on Melissa Martinez, and this fight was truly a one-sided domination, just like I expected, but it wasn't a one-sided domination in the way I expected. I truly expected Fatima Kline to go out there and impose her will in the grappling, but she actually showed off some pretty impressive striking skills. And geez, just how bad is Melissa Martinez? I mean, you're supposed to be this formidable striker with good kicks from the outside, but you're just getting pieced up at range by a primary grappler. I mean, it was obvious from the first round that she was just a step behind, where she got outstruck 32-17. And then in the second, it was pretty funny because the commentary team was saying how Martinez was doing much better that round, but the striking stats were literally identical to the first. And then in the third, Kline feints a jab and then lands a beautiful head kick right behind it that just absolutely crumbled Martinez. And then with just a couple ground and pound shots, and the fight was over. I thought that was a very impressive showing from Kline, who, despite the lack of competition, went out there and dominated a striker in her world and capped it off with a nasty finish. The only thing I would worry about Kline going forward was the lack of wrestling success, as Martinez essentially stuffed all her takedowns, but I'm pretty sure Martinez was only training her takedown defense for this camp, and Kline is still so young. She just turned 25 on fight day, so she has a lot of room to grow. As for the betting side of things, I obviously took Kline here, but I also had her by finish, so congrats to all you guys who played Kline inside the distance, and if you had her in some of your parlays, it was essentially just a free leg. Alright, moving up on the card, we had Mike Beast Boy Davis taking on Mitch Ramirez. And this fight played out somewhat closely despite what the odds had it at, but for the most part, it was just Mike Davis dominating. But Mitch did have some really good moments, to be fair. The fight started out with Mitch landing some pretty good shots on the feet until he was ultimately taken down with ease and immediately got his back taken. But Mitch stayed gritty and did a good job of fighting the hands and never allowed Davis to sink in anything all that deep. And then once the second round started, Davis just looked beyond gassed, and Ramirez was landing nasty combos on him. And it really looked like the tide was turning in his favor, but Davis was still landing, and he eventually got Ramirez against the fence and unloaded a nasty combo on him that just folded him like a lawn chair. And yeah, this was a fight that I had absolutely zero action on. I did take Davis to win and to win by knockout, but I wasn't confident enough to put any money on him, especially at that price tag. But if you did, shout out to you, man. But I really can't see myself betting on Davis anytime in the future, as they're probably going to give him a significant step up in competition for his next outing. Okay, moving up on the card, we got the man of the hour, the absolute legend, Valter, the clean monster Walker, who brought home yet another foot trophy when he absolutely snapped off Kennedy Nzechukwu's foot in less than a minute. And all I gotta say about this one is, Tom Aspinall, you better count your days, little buddy. Caress that belt while you can, because the clean monster is coming for you, and he's looking to tear ligaments. If you thought your ACL tear was bad, oh boy, do I got some news for you, my man. But no, in all seriousness, this was one of my best picks on the card. I know a lot of people were going with Kennedy in this one, which I totally understand. I still think he's going to be something at heavyweight, but man, he is just too inconsistent for me to pick him. And I just knew the ground skill advantage for Walker would be astronomical in this one. And this might seem like an odd comparison, but to me at least, Valter Walker fights a lot like DDP. Because to start the fight, Valter just charges at him with his head down, swinging wild, and shoots in on a takedown that is way too far out to even get anywhere near Kennedy's hips. But he just kept on swinging and actually hurt Kennedy. And then he used an inside trip, I believe it was, to get Kennedy to the floor. And then he actually gives up top position to go for the heel hook and gets it almost instantaneously. Like, for a heavyweight, this dude's ground skills are nuts. And I was saying that in the full card predictions. And it's so crazy to me how Valter Walker's only loss of his career is to Lucas Brzeski, one of the worst fighters ever signed to the promotion. But I'm convinced he came into that one with some sort of injury, because he just didn't want to lose his chance to debut in the UFC, so he was just like, screw it, I'll fight, because he did not look himself in that one. But ever since then, this man has looked like a literal cheat code. And in the beginning, I was only half joking about the Aspinall fight, because this dude is actually a bad matchup for Tom if you think about it. I mean, Valter has an iron chin, which is crazy considering who his brother is. I guess having a chin is not hereditary. And Tom's only professional loss by his way of heel hook. So I'm not saying I would pick Valter to beat Tom, but I am picking Valter to essentially beat every single heavyweight on the roster besides Jailton Almeida and Tom Aspinall. Like, when I say Valter Walker would do unspeakable things to Cyril Gane, he would turn Gane's ankle into a literal pretzel. But yeah, this was a very good pick by me, and so far I'm 3 for 3 on the card with one underdog. All right, so next up we had Eduarda Moura taking on that random crackhead who hangs outside 7-Eleven. And let me tell you something. Cracky gave her a good run for her money. I mean, I thought that guillotine was in, and I was getting ready to wave goodbye to my perfect start to the card. But no, Moura showed off some crazy grit and was able to somehow find her way out of the choke. And a lot of people will say that's a bad look for Moura, but I actually think it's a great thing. It shows that she's got grit and she's not just going to give up when the going gets tough, like someone in the next fight. But I see Moura as one of those fighters who isn't the most skilled in any one area, but she has a lot of heart, and she goes out there every time and looks to impose her will and use her physicality to her advantage, which in women's MMA will get you very far. I don't think she's a future champ or anything, but she's most definitely a future ranked girl. And there was actually some pretty funny moments in the post-fight. First off, after the decision was read, Murphy wanted nothing to do with Moura. I think she was looking to spark up the pipe or something, but you guys know how the Brazilians are, always big on sportsmanship and whatnot. So Moura tracks her down and hugs her and starts yapping in Portuguese, and then Cracky's just like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, lady, and just dips. And then in the interview, she gives probably one of the longest post-fight interviews I think I've ever heard in my life, considering this was a low-levels women's prelim. And throughout the interview, she kept on referring to herself as young, and DC was doing the same. And I was like, isn't she like 31 or something? But to be fair to Moura, she started late, so I can see her having an Ayman Zahabi-like career where she's still performing at a high level and improving in her mid to late 30s. But yeah, with Moura taking home the decision, that continued my perfect streak, bringing it to 4 for 4. All right, next up on the card, we had Jake Mathews taking on Chidi, the quitter, Njokuani. And guys, I told you this would happen. I didn't think Jake would sub him in the first minute of the fight, but I knew the moment things got hard for Chidi, he would look for the door, and that is exactly what happened. I know a lot of people who were picking Chidi, and I get it, I really do, but Chidi is just not someone I can really trust with my picks. I truly think he needs to move up 2 weight classes because he is not a welterweight, and I have no clue how this dude has been making 170 because he probably walks around at like 215. Like, that's a Rumble Johnson level weight cut, and I think he should take a page out of Rumble's book and move up to 205. Like, when you're cutting that much weight, you spend the entire camp just trying to get your weight down, as opposed to actually trying to improve. And I feel like if Chidi just constantly drilled takedown defense and didn't have to worry about a weight cut, he would be an absolute force to be reckoned with at 205. And I would pick him to beat a lot of guys at that weight class. But in this fight against Mathews, he got tripped, and Jake took his back in an instant, and Chidi tried to shake him off, but Jake had already gotten his hooks in, and at that point, he just subbed him up with relative ease. And I really do think Mathews is finally coming into his own. I mean, this is a dude who literally grew up in the UFC. He's only 30 years old, and that was his 22nd fight in the promotion. And just for reference, Wonderboy is 42, and he only has 21. So this is a dude with a wealth of experience that most of these guys just don't have. And I feel pretty safe picking him against anyone but the real top prospects of the division, like Michael Morales. But yeah, Mathews winning continued my perfect streak, bringing it to 5 in a row and 2 for 2 on dog picks. All right, next up on the card, we had the feature prelim where we had Chris Curtis taking on Max Payne Griffin. And I knew Max would put up a tough fight as he's the literal definition of a tough out, but I didn't think it would be this tough for Chris. I mean, I thought Chris clearly won the second and the third, but Max was fighting hard, but he just doesn't have it anymore. He looked very gassed about midway through the second, and none of his shots had really any sting on them. And really the only round that Max won was the first, but it was a controversial round because he landed that nut shot on Chris, and there was a head clash that didn't get stopped. So Chris was fighting an uphill battle from the beginning, but he still pulled off the win. But it just wasn't impressive in my opinion. I thought he would have had more of a definitive performance by significantly outlanding Max, but the striking numbers at the end of the fight were essentially even. And one judge even scored it to Max, even though I did think Chris clearly won and it should not have been a split. It was just a little too close for comfort, so I'm definitely looking to fade Chris in the future because I just think his style isn't conducive to winning a whole lot of fights if he isn't able to find that KO shot. But we did pick Chris here to get it done by decision, and that's exactly what happened. So this win brought us to 6 in a row and gave us a clean sweep of the prelims. All right, moving on to the main card, which is where my perfect prediction streak unfortunately came to an end, where we had Junior Tafa taking on Tuco Tokkos. And man, was this a low-level fight. Honestly, probably the lowest level fight we've seen since, I guess, Blood Diamond versus Charles Radke. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't pick Tuco's here because I even said in the full card predictions that he had a clear path to victory in this one via the wrestling, and that's essentially what happened. Pretty much every single round of this fight went the exact same way, where Tafa would hurt him on the feet and then Tokkos would clinch up and try to find the takedown. And despite some good initial takedown defense from Junior, he would always end up getting dragged to the floor. And just like I said in the prediction video, if a Tafa brother gets dragged to the floor, that's either going to be the round or the fight. And that's exactly what we saw. Honestly, you can make the argument that Tafa won the first based on damage, but Tuco still probably got it. And then in the second, Tafa had Tuco hurt bad, and I would say Tafa definitely won that round until, of course, he got choked out by Tokkos. all in all, pretty boring, low-level fight, but I'm happy for Tokkos as he finally got his long-anticipated UFC victory. And in his post-fight interview, he said that he wants to fight on the next London card, and I say let him. Just feed him to some up-and-coming prospect, because that's essentially Tokkos' role in the UFC, is to be a stepladder for the prospects with actual talent, and to pretty much just make them look good and give them an easy victory. But overall, good win for Tuco. He had to overcome some adversity and show some heart, but unfortunately this fight snapped my perfect prediction streak and brought my predictions to 6-1 overall on the night. Okay, so moving on up, we had probably one of the easiest fights to predict on the card, but man, I got the method of victory wrong, which I was giving out as a confident bet for you guys, and for that, I truly apologize. I really thought this was a lock, but from now on, I'm always going to recommend either hedging, playing the inside the distance prop, or just taking the money line straight up, because this one truly killed me. But we had Vitor Petrino taking on Austen Lane, and in this one, I had obviously picked Petrino to go out there and win, but I said he would get the knockout, and man, I truly cannot remember a time I was this confident in a prop. Like, I really thought it was free, but no, Vitor went out there and didn't even throw a single punch on the feet. He pretty much just stayed patient and waited for Austen to throw a kick, which he caught and used to take him down, and from there, the difference of ground skill was astronomical. He first was looking to secure an arm triangle, but when he realized he didn't quite have it, he postured up and started landing some vicious ground and pound, and this gave me a glimmer of hope and had me screaming at my TV, "Finish him, Vitor!" But then, of course, the big dummy Lane just had to give up his back, providing Vitor with the easiest rear naked choke of his life. So, all in all, good win for Vitor, but I just wish he would have just stood and banged with Austen, because I know for a fact he would have had Austen sleeping with the first big shot he landed. But hey, this just goes to show that Vitor has relatively high fight IQ and will more often than not go out there and try to take the path of least resistance. And yeah, I actually really like Vitor at heavyweight. I mean, bro just looks like an absolute tank out there, and I see him beating a lot of guys in the division because he's very well-rounded. He's faster than, I'd say, 95% of the division, and he's very good at just imposing his will on his opponent. So yeah, I'm actually really excited for the future of heavyweight. I hope that in a few years, all these ranked fat blobs like Waldo Cortez Acosta and Sergey Spivak are eventually killed off by actual athletic heavyweights like Vitor and Walker. And I do see the trend continuing of light heavyweights moving up because they really have no reason not to. And with Vitor winning this one, that brings my prediction record to 7-1. All right, moving up on the card. And man, this one just hurt, boys. I mean, this just absolutely stung. We had Nate the Train taking on Morgan Charriere. And guys, I thought Nate had this one in the bag. I really did. The fight started off with both guys landing good shots on the feet, but Morgan was clearly way ahead in the leg kick battle, as every single one he landed had an obvious effect on Nate where he would kind of just stumble off balance. And then later in the round, Nate showed that he's obviously been working on his takedown defense because Morgan shot 2 takedowns on him late in the round. And in response, Nate showed off one of the strongest whizzers I think I've ever seen and was easily able to get back to his feet and actually was able to reverse the second attempt, which allowed him to get some top control time during the waning seconds of the round. So all in all, it was a razor close first round, but I think I would edge it out to Morgan as the strikes were essentially even, except for the leg kicks that had Nate stumbling and developing 2 huge bumps on his calf. But then the second round is where Nate truly came alive. He was just landing that jab on Morgan at will, spinning bro's head back like an owl. And this round truly demonstrated why I couldn't pick Morgan. Bro was just too low volume. And the entire round, he was just a step behind Nate, who was just easily outstriking Morgan. And it was funny, in this round, Nate took a nut shot, and the ref immediately jumped in, but Nate being Nate, of course, he didn't want to let Morgan off the hook and give him a break, so he was like, nah, screw that, let me fight, I'm good. And the ref was like, no, hold on, you gotta wait. But Nate persisted, and finally, the ref gave in and started the action again. And as soon as he did, Nate immediately throws a wild wing overhand that completely missed, and had Nate landing like a mile away. And I mean, how can you not love Nate the Train? This dude is the pure embodiment of a blue-collar worker, and he's just a fighter's fighter. So the second round was a clear round to Nate. And guys, at this point, I was just counting my money. I thought we had this in the bag, so I cannot even begin to describe my horror and disappointment when in the opening seconds of the third round, Morgan just went out there and said, screw it, and just started unloading a barrage of like 20 haymakers. I mean, they were some of the widest winging hooks I think I've ever seen. Like, he honestly looked like Michael Chandler out there. And at first, Nate was doing well, rolling with the punches, but then Morgan just connects with a nasty left, and then a right which just crumbled Nate. And honestly, knowing Nate, I know for a fact he would have kept fighting, but based on the visual of Nate's legs collapsing from underneath him, the ref made the right decision to jump in because it looked bad. But man, I feel bad for Nate. He's such a dog, and the dude just wants to scrap. But sometimes your chin and your heart just aren't on the same page. And when you got a guy like Nate who's been through so many wars, that's going to happen sometimes, especially when you're fighting someone with power. So all in all, good win for Morgan. I can't really say his stock jumped for me because I knew if he was to win, this is how it would happen via knockout, but I just expected it to happen earlier in the fight. But what's weird to me is that so many people were saying that Morgan is this like technical kickboxer, but I really couldn't disagree more. This dude's a brawler. He essentially has the exact same fight style as Nate, just with less volume. I mean, those strikes he was throwing during the finishing sequence couldn't have been less technical. He had his elbows flared out, and he was just winging wide, looping bombs. And in fact, his fight style actually reminds me a lot of his countryman, Benoit Saint-Denis. So, yeah, this fight definitely wasn't a brawler going against a technical kickboxer. It was two brawlers going at it, and the one with the better chin came out on top. So, yeah, all in all, good win for Morgan, and him winning brought my total to 7-2 on the night. All right, moving on to the feature bout, we had probably one of my worst picks of all time, where we had Calvin Old Man Kattar taking on Steve Garcia. And yeah, Kattar is just beyond washed at this point. Or maybe he was just never all that good. Who knows, but better yet, who cares? Because this dude still has a job in the UFC after this. I'm fading him. He could be fighting Anshul Jubilee for all I care. He's still getting faded. And yeah, where do I really begin with this fight? It was essentially just Steve Garcia maintaining distance perfectly and picking apart Calvin from range, whilst Calvin just refused to fight back. And when he did, he would miss by a lot. It was really apparent in this fight that Garcia was a Jackson Wink guy because his fight style was very reminiscent of John Jones. I mean, he was just spamming those oblique kicks on Calvin's bad knee. And to be fair to Calvin, it is very hard to get going when someone's implementing that tactic on you. But yeah, this performance really impressed me from Steve Garcia. And it wasn't just the fact that Calvin looked really washed. It was really just the fact that Steve Garcia could implement this sort of game plan against a guy who is ultra durable and won't get knocked out. And very few people have the durability of Calvin Kattar. So against the majority of fighters in this division, if Garcia's landing those kind of shots he was landing against Kattar, you're going to bed. So yeah, this performance was very eye-opening for me. Not only demonstrating how washed Kattar truly is, but also showing that Steve Garcia is legit. And going forward, I'll probably pick him to beat most strikers, because if he's fighting someone with average durability, he's probably going to chin them. Or if he's fighting someone crazy durable like a Morgan Charriere, he could just maintain range and pick them apart from the outside. So really, the only people I see him giving Steve problems are the elite grapplers of this division, like Movsar Evloev, Aljamain Sterling, those kind of guys, and as well as the elite, well-rounded fighters like Jean Silva and Lerone Murphy. But all in all, I think this performance from Garcia truly cemented himself as a top 10 fighter in the division, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do from here. But with Steve winning, this one brought us down to 7-3 on the night. All right, moving on up to the co-main event of the evening, we had Steven Wonderboy Thompson taking on Gabriel Bonfim. And this fight was close, but it wasn't a robbery like a lot of people are claiming. Everyone is saying Thompson won the third, but he literally did nothing that round. He landed one head kick that hit Bonfim's guard and didn't hurt him like the one in the second round did. And Bonfim outstruck Thompson in the third and outgrappled him. And he did the same in the first round. So yeah, this was a close but still clear 29-28 for Bonfim. And I know what you guys are about to say. I'm biased because I picked Bonfim, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm literally the most objective person on the planet when it comes to this. If my pick benefits from a robbery, I will be the first one to admit it. Like, I picked Gane to beat Volkov the second time, and I thought that was a robbery. I picked Brian Battle to beat Brandy Brown, and that was a robbery. And I picked Curtis Blades to beat Riz Vankuniev, and that was without a doubt the most brutal robbery I've ever witnessed. On no planet did Blades win that, but I digress. Because in this fight, despite Thompson showing a good account of himself, he did lose the fight in my opinion. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be very low on Bonfim because of this performance, but in terms of just the striking, Wonderboy is actually a really bad matchup for Bonfim because Wonderboy is in that bladed karate stance looking to strike from the outside, and Bonfim has straight up T-Rex arms. Bro has only a 72-inch reach or something, so if he wanted to find striking success, he had to crash the pocket, which is not easy to do against Wonderboy. So I, for one, am still relatively high on Bonfim. I don't think he's a future title challenger or anything, but I think he beats, the Jeff Neals and the Kevin Hollands of the division. But once you reach someone like a Leon Edwards or a Ian Gary, that's when he's going to start to struggle big time. But he's still young. He's only 27, so give him some time to develop, and I think he can definitely cement himself into the top 10 of the welterweight division. So with Bonfim winning this one, our record was brought up to 8-3 on the night. All right, and finally we got the main event of the evening, and man, how anticlimactic was that? We had Derrick Lewis taking on Tallison Teixeira, and Derrick Lewis wins via TKO within the first minute of the fight. But man, I have seen so many people online defending this stoppage. I knew that the majority of UFC fans on Twitter are casuals, but oh my god, how can anyone in their right mind defend that stoppage? That was the worst stoppage I've ever seen. So the fight was very quick, so I'll just break it down for you real fast. Teixeira lands a right hand on Lewis, and it appears to hurt Lewis. So as Teixeira goes in to try to finish the fight, Derrick just starts swinging bombs back at him because he was obviously just playing possum. And it's honestly kind of astonishing that Tallison wasn't aware of that. And he gets clipped and knocked down with a huge overhand left from Lewis. And I cannot stress this enough, that was just a knockdown. That was not a fight-ending blow. And then as Tallison tries to scramble up, Derrick pounces on him and starts landing ground and pound, but the last 3 shots he landed were all clearly to the back of the head. But Tallison keeps trying to get up, and he eventually makes his way to the fence, where he uses the fence to pull himself back up, which is obviously illegal, but that doesn't mean the fight should be stopped, and Derrick Lewis gets awarded a TKO victory because of it. I have seen so many people claiming online, well, the only reason he didn't get knocked out is because he was holding onto the fence. I'm sorry, that is the most brain-dead take I think I've ever heard in my life. How is holding onto a fence going to prevent you from getting knocked out? So you're telling me if Francis Ngannou landed a bomb on you, but you were holding onto a fence, you wouldn't get knocked out? Obviously not. The moment he lands on you, you would release your grip of the fence and fall to the floor because you got knocked out. And similarly with the Lewis fight, Teixeira was nowhere near being KO'd. He was completely lucid, but Herzog just decided to stop the fight anyways. And you guys might say I'm biased because I picked Teixeira, but Teixeira wasn't in any of my official plays. Go watch the betting breakdown, look at the parlays in the comment. I didn't have Teixeira in any of them. And I didn't have a cent of my own money on Teixeira. I just thought this was a truly BS stoppage by Herzog. And this isn't the first time that he's pulled a stunt like this. Last year in the main event between Nazarene Imavov and Jared Cannonier, he stopped that fight extremely early as well. And I had picked Imavov to win. I still said it was an early stoppage because it was. And look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Lewis here. I mean, he looked way better than Tallison, who fought like a complete dum-dum. So I guess bro doesn't have that good a fight IQ because instead of, actually using his 6'7" frame, he's throwing combos in elbow range. Literally the only reason I picked Tallison is because he came into the Tafa fight with the perfect game plan. Head kick and straight into a takedown. But there was literally none of that in the Lewis fight. Instead, he just decided to stand and bang with the UFC's all-time knockout leader. So suffice to say, I'm not as high on Tallison as I once was. So with that being the last fight on the card, that brought my prediction total to 8-4 on the night. So decent, but I'm definitely looking to go 100% on UFC 318. Alright boys, that'll do it for my betting recap and reaction of UFC Nashville. All in all, we killed it on this card, hitting on nearly all the plays, and if you tailed all the parlays, you would be up big right now. And if you didn't tail, that's totally fine, I understand, I really do. But just make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be dropping videos like this every single week in order to help you guys get this free money. And yeah, before you go, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And yeah, stay tuned for the full card predictions coming early this week, and I'll see you boys next time.